Let's get started here. Got a few more people logging in, but they'll be able to catch up here. I think you've got my screen on your screen, and like I said, as we go through this, we'll save the questions till the end, and Will Leger is going to be kind of looking at your questions, and he'll queue them up and ask me at the end, and we'll go from there. But I want to welcome you all to the BIM Cloud and the AEC Collaboration webinar here, presented by Advance2000. The agenda for today is a couple things here. We're going to have give it some quick introductions, myself and Will, as well as Advance2000. We'll get into some high-level industry challenges as what do I care about clouds and all this collaboration? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Have a little bit of a high-level overview of a BIM cloud computing. I'm not going to spend as much time on that because I have given a previous webinar on that. If you need more details, you can certainly watch that. This is really building on that technology. The majority of the conversation today is going to be around the AEC Collaboration Hub and what firms are doing with this new technology. And then briefly talk about some of our Collaboration Hub partners, and then we'll wrap the questions. So I hope to get you all out of here within an hour. All right, first me, Chris France. Hello, everyone. I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer, not a contractor. I'm an IT guy. I've been in this industry for a long time. Currently, I am the president of Advance2000 in North Carolina. I'm actually sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. But I've spent 11 years as a CIO for Little here in Charlotte. I've also worked for IBM, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and so forth. I've written a few articles on AECBYTES as well as mastering Revit Architecture on the cloud, as well as I speak all over the place all the time. So I greatly appreciate you all being here today. And Will Leger here is with me. He's one of our business development executives here in Charlotte, assisting me with the webinar today. Advance2000, what do we do? Who are we? Well, we're a 20-year-old IT engineering services firm that focused on several industries. Of course, the AEC industry, which is what I'm talking about today. We also serve the healthcare industry, government, education, legal, and manufacturing. And we provide a whole host of services, all the way from cloud computing to help desk to integrated communications, IP telephony, strategy audits, and so forth. So we're a full-service IT engineering firm. All right, let's get into some of these challenges here. What impact would real-time collaboration have on your firm? These are some of the questions that I'm going to address today. How would your profitability improve if all firms on the project were working together in real time? Do owners want their buildings completed faster and at a lower cost? What is the best way to design a LEED Platinum building in a sustainable environment? Those are some of the challenges that we'll be facing and discussing today. So what is the cloud? I want to kind of give some introductions here on just what the heck am I talking about cloud computing. In its simplest form, it's a transformation of IT into a utility. This is where we take your servers, your desktops, your telephony, backup software, and basically turn them into services you subscribe to. This allows you to have on-demand access to scalable computing. If I need more CPU, if I need more memory, if I need more storage, you just call us up and we add it. It's changing your IT spend from a capital expense to an operating expense. This is particularly interesting in today's environment where a lot of firms are very shy or shying away from spending $300,000 on capital equipment, not only to purchase it, but to actually go out and get a loan and finance it. Firms would much rather just turn it into an operational expense and kind of move into the cloud. Perhaps the obsolescence of the PC, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The PC is no longer the kind of the center of the universe as it once had been. And then we've got lower cost, faster computing means better productivity for your firm. What are some of the business drivers? Every presentation has to have some quotes from Gartner, and mine is no different. Believe it or not, there's been a lot of talk about cost savings and cost benefits of the cloud, but that's not the biggest reason why firms move or adopt the cloud. It's really because of the agility and speed that it offers. Agility means being able to change directions quickly. Your business changes. You're ramping up, you're ramping down, you're trying to move into new markets, add new services, and you need your technology to keep up with what you're trying to do to serve your clients. That's the main reason firms adopting the cloud, because it's easier to add people to an existing infrastructure than to actually design, build, and manage a new infrastructure. And that's where the cloud has an advantage. And certainly the second reason is cost. You will say, and I tell many firm owners that got 10, 15, 20 offices across the country, 20 offices of IT cost more than one. When you consolidate your IT into a data center, you will save money. Some more predictions from Gartner. Now, this isn't saying that everybody will be entirely in the cloud by the end of 2013. What it's saying is that 90% of the firms, not just AEC firms, but across the industry, all industries, will be adopting some level of cloud computing. You see here kind of on the left, some of the easy stuff, maybe storage and some web servers or whatever. But more and more, they're actually looking at more, more infrastructure, phone systems, virtual images, and so forth, and moving more into the cloud. All right, today I'm going to let's talk about kind of project cloud. I'm going to be throwing around some terms, and I want to define them. Two of the main solutions that Advance2000 offers is what I would call a project cloud and an IT cloud. And first, let's talk about the project cloud. Well, this is where most firms enter into the cloud. They want to design and work on a project. They want to use BIM, Revit. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to use Revit for the sake of our conversation today because it's got a very good process to have multiple designers working at the same time on a building. And so basically we install the BIM or design applications on your virtual desktop. Your virtual desktop actually is sitting in a data center. Our data center happens to be in Western New York. This is where you do all your Revit model collaboration. So basically we're doing a virtual co-location. So this is the same way that your team would work if everybody was sitting in your same office. Now this team can work sitting all over the country, at home, wherever they're connected to the network. We've got all your servers virtualized, your file servers, your security servers, any other servers that you need to run your business, eSpecs, Newform, whatever, and you can access it from anywhere. And you also have IT staff, support to keep all this stuff running 24/7. And I call it, you now have a project sandbox. You've got a place to play, to do your work, and kind of take out the distance and the geographic separation that you have. Now we're going to talk about all the various ways that people use a project cloud, but that's basically what it is. Project cloud is for a project. Set it up for the project team members and your work. Now an IT cloud, I'm going to be going back and forth between this. It's certainly, it includes a project cloud. Generally start with the project cloud, and as firms start using that, they said, hey, can I add my email? I would be more productive if I could add my email in there. And can I add Newform into my cloud? And oh yeah, I got to have my time card and my financial system, and maybe some documents that are stored in my SharePoint. I've got either my BST financial system or QuickBooks. Oh yeah, and you got to back all this stuff up. Can you back it up for me? And oh, it's really nice to be, have a phone system. I don't want to have to go out and put a PBX in 20 offices. Can that be in the cloud too? And even video conferencing is heading to the cloud. I say it basically includes everything but the kitchen sink, and it's your IT department or it's your IT shop. And so that's an IT cloud. Same thing as the same benefits as a project cloud. It's all virtual servers, all data centralized, stored in one location. You can access it from anywhere. You got the 24/7 coverage, and it's still a sandbox, but now with more people and toys. So you're building on your project cloud. All right. Now let me talk about some. Now I'm still in kind of the BIM cloud mode. Some of the basics. Like I said, there's a lot more detail that I provided at an earlier webinar that's on our website, but I wanted to hit the high points. So this would be a client. This is what you, as an end user of the cloud, would have. You could have one of these new MacBook with a Retina display as your client. You can basically choose your weapon, whatever you want to use. You can use your existing tablets or laptops. You can still have your workstations with your tower units and your dual monitors. You can use your smartphone to get into the cloud. A lot of the Advance2000 engineers will do support on their smartphones. You know, they'll be at a kid's soccer game or whatever at home. They'll just fire up the cloud on their phone. iPads becoming very popular in all industries to be able to connect into the cloud. We've got these new HP, I'll call them dumb terminals, the zero client terminal that is doing all of this screen rendering and mouse clicks and graphics all in hardware rather than software to get the ultimate performance. A lot of our healthcare clients like these as well because of data security. They don't have any data leaving the data center. And this last client here is basically one of these devices built into the screen. So it's a 24-inch HD monitor with a built-in network card that allows you to launch a remote desktop. So you've got all of these different devices, and there's more coming out every day. Chances are, if it will run a computer, a browser, a network, it'll be able to get into the cloud. And this is kind of the dashboard view. You know, as you're logged into one of these devices, this is what your desktop would look like. You know, I could be on a MacBook launching a remote Windows desktop, and it runs all my applications. Now, if this were a project cloud, it would only have the things that I need for that project. If it was an IT cloud, it would have all the applications that you're running in your IT. And so basically, it's almost like we're turning your desktop into a website. So just like you were to hit a website now on the internet or on a private circuit, whatever, you can hit your desktop that has all your applications and data. So if you're going through the airport and you get your laptop stolen, they didn't really get anything other than your hardware. All your data and your projects and corporate data are still in the data center secure. So that's kind of what the user portal looks like. And simplifying this greatly, and in the data center, this is what's sitting in the data center. We've got just piles of desktop and server hardware. You know, this is where all your CPUs, all your memory is located, graphics cards, everything that we need for the desktop, virtual desktops as well as the physical desktops, as well as piles of storage, hundreds of terabytes of storage. Some storage is really fast, more for the virtual desktop images. Some storage is slower, maybe for the archives or backups, and we have storage to meet your needs. And this is really where you hear me talking a lot about economies of scale. You know, if you need a 2 gig, a 2-core, 16 gig desktop, and a terabyte of storage, we just carve out a little piece of desktop computing resources from this stack, and a little bit of storage out of this stack, and we create a virtual LAN for you. And the unit cost of those are much lower than if you were to go out and buy a 1 terabyte server because of the economies of scale. That's really what's sitting in the data center. And with the BIM Cloud, people always ask me, well, what does this cost? And I did want to throw out some costs just so you have this in front of you as we go through and talk about these various collaboration scenarios. But it really is a custom build. Every firm is different. Every culture is different. Every way they manage their project is different. Size of projects are different. And so we have all of these various components that are like a menu. You go into a restaurant and order off a menu, say I need 2 of those, and I want 5 of those, and 3 of those, and we kind of add up, and here's your bill. And so what I did is I went in and did a fictitious company where I picked out 16 gig desktops, which is kind of like the norm for the new versions of Revit for decent-sized projects. Most of our clients are standing up 16 gig desktops, 2-core. We'll do most projects really well in Revit. I included 2 virtual servers. One of the servers has 200 gigs of storage for the project models. It includes internet access into the data center, as well as the data center security, the HVAC, and all that, as well as the 24/7 IT support to keep all this stuff running. Now, for 5 users, we're talking $900 a month to do this, and for 10 users, it's about $1360 a month. You can see as you it's not a linear type thing. The costs start to flatten out as you get larger. 10 users is not twice 5 users. It's not 1,800. It's less than that. And this is actually right from our configuration tool. So that we're not talking a lot of money when you look at what this will do for a firm to be able to collaborate in real time and not have to move files around, not have to have coordination meetings, and so on and so forth. It lets you find problems and fail faster, which is good for a project. All right. Now it's kind of the meat of the presentation, AEC Collaboration Hub. I'm going to kind of walk through 8 scenarios. And what this is allowing us to do is what I call integrated project delivery, IPD. Some people have called it the building supply chain. Basically, we have a lot of stakeholders that are involved in the construction process, and everybody has a different role at different parts in the project. And boy, wouldn't it be nice to have everybody kind of working together in real time when they are needed. This certainly facilitates not only intra-firm collaboration. We've got many clients using this technology that have multiple offices and are using that. But it's also now firms are looking at this. I've got 3 different firms, and I want us all to work on this common infrastructure. And we'll talk about product manufacturers and the lead. These guys have products that you need for your buildings, and they want to be part of this process. It's like this ecosystem of owners, the building owner or the chief beneficiary of that building, architects, engineers, contractors, facility managers, service providers that kind of pop up to help the building industry, as well as municipalities are starting to show interest in being able to kind of pop into your cloud, track the project as you're going through design, and help them get your permit faster as they're going through the permitting process. You heard a lot about e-permitting, or there's some municipalities that are starting to adopt the models, whether they're DWFs or Revit, to be able to look at the building in a model rather than just paper. So let's get into these scenarios. Now, for the sake of today's discussion, for the most part, I'm talking about collaboration in a single data center in North America, which just happens to be in Western New York. And the importance of your data location can't be overemphasized, because your data needs to be in one location. When you start moving terabytes of information around the country, it's very difficult to keep track of everything. And you're going to hear me say this a lot, you need to walk before you run. And let's talk about, the reason you want to walk before you run is because the cloud not only changes the technology you're using to run your business, it changes your workflow and your business processes. And you want to avoid a disaster and kind of work through this new technology, and work through this new workflow before you blast it out to your entire organization. And it might even change your business model. And I've got a slide later to talk about that. So, okay, what's this matrix? I'm a very logical guy. I'm a computer guy, so I wanted to kind of make this simple. There's really only 2 choices I told you about. You've got a project cloud, or you've got an IT cloud. Project's just for the project, IT is everything but the kitchen sink. And now you've got these different scenarios. I could be a single firm, and I want to collaborate in a single cloud. It could be a project cloud or an IT cloud. Or I'm a single firm, and I want to collaborate with multiple clouds. Or the other scenario is I've got multiple firms that want to work together on this project in a single cloud, or in a project cloud. So all these different scenarios I'm going to kind of walk through, and then there's multi-firm, multi-cloud. Scenarios 1 through 4 are what are happening right now. These other ones, I'll probably gloss over them. They may happen in the future, and as you'll see, some of them may not even make sense. Just because it could happen doesn't mean it will happen. All right. First collaboration scenario, a single firm working in a single project cloud. This is the walking. This is where I recommend everybody start. We're talking about one file server for all your data, stationary. You only need to link the files. So let me kind of give you an example. I printed off this local directory. Everybody's familiar with I wanted to get real specific on these file systems. So here's the project, and for this I created 4 projects: Project 1000, Project 2000, Project 3000, and Project 4000. For this slide, I'm going to be talking about Project 1000. And if I double-clicked on that 1000, I would see this directory structure that's sitting on, like a lot of your file systems all over the world. You may have an admin directory, an architecture, city is for the municipality, permitting, contractor, electric, fire, and so forth. And here's all of the various consultants and disciplines that are involved in this project. But because this firm happens to be an architect, they're going to have their admin and their architecture folder in the cloud, and that's going to be their pilot. And they've got 5 people working in 3 different offices within this one firm. Everybody sees everything. You make a change to the model, everybody sees it instantly. In this scenario, the architects are mobile. They can be at the office, they could be at home, they could be at the job site, and they can get in and see this file system. They can fire up Revit on their virtual desktop, and they can work. The problem is everybody else is still outside of the cloud. So in order to get the models from the engineers, you've got to do them the way you've always done them. Maybe an FTP site or a project website or whatever, and you've got to agree on an exchange interval, maybe daily, maybe every 2 days. And so you've got to basically do the FTP between your cloud and the engineer's location. And this last point here, the Revit migration, I don't remember if you guys remember, 10 years ago when firms started to migrate to Revit, it reminds me a lot of the cloud migration. Early on, this architect here may be a leading edge architect and wanted to be running on Revit, and they're on Revit, but their engineer was still on AutoCAD. And so for a while they would tolerate, shipping the DWGs and linking them into the Revit file. But after a while, it got to be a pain. They just said, hey, look, if you want to keep working with us, you need to kind of get with the program and be on Revit. And so the engineer would do that, and that's kind of where they're at now. The same thing is happening to the cloud. The people that are in the cloud, for a while, will tolerate working with people outside of the cloud. And then after a while, they're going to say, hey, look, if you need to work with us on this project, you need to get in the cloud. So that's a single firm, single project collaboration. This is happening today, and it's also what we would call our pilot. I'll talk about that. It's a proof of concept to try it out. All right, next scenario. Multiple firms collaborating in a single project cloud. All right, in this case, I'll build on my previous example. I'm still working on Project 1000. I've got the admin and the architecture directory from the architect's cloud, and now this architect, just had that conversation I just said. They say, hey, look, we're tired of shipping these models via FTP. We'd like you to get into our cloud. So the engineer says, all right, fine. Carve out some space in your cloud for me. So we do that. We add a few engineers, and then we have now the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, structural sitting in the architect's cloud, all working. So you have all these highlighted directories populated, and now I would call this jogging. We're starting to kind of get into working together between firms in real time, and the lead firm, they can decide to either absorb the cost as part of the project cost, or they can pass the cost off to the engineering firm, and that's really done on a case-by-case basis. But now here we've got a little bit different problem that we run into. In the previous scenario, you've got the architect, which is all the same company. Their file systems are wide open. They don't care. Everybody in the company can read this data. Anybody can change it, and so forth. But now you've got an engineer that's not part of your company in this, and they can only see this one Project 1000, but you may not want them to be able to see everything, or you may not want them to be able to change the architectural model. So what we can do is we make the architectural directory read-write for the architect, and we make the engineering directories read-only for the architect, and then vice versa for the engineer. We make their directories read-write for them and read-only for the architecture. So you can kind of keep everybody out of each other's files and messing them up if you don't want that to happen. And you can see here I've also got a private directory. Some firms may have things that they don't want any of the team to see, or they don't want the owner to see, and you can do that as well. You can kind of lock it down and manage this all through the Windows security. All right, that's multi-firm, single project cloud, and firms are doing this right now as I speak. All right, now this gets interesting, and I'm going to kind of draw this through. This is kind of where we're at now. We have multiple firms that are collaborating with multiple project clouds. Take a little time on this. All right, we got this architect that I was talking about. They're working on Project 1000. Got this engineer, and this architect's the lead on Project 1000. This engineer is the lead on Project 2000. We've got a contractor, maybe doing a design build thing here, and they're the lead on Project 3000. We've got an owner that is the lead. Maybe there's a CM at risk type project going on. for Project 4000, and they've got their favorite architect and engineer that they use on this project, and so they kind of bring them along with their clouds. And so now let me kind of go up here. So now this architect for Project 1000 needs an engineer. So we can connect, we can do a virtual connection inside the data center to connect the architect cloud to the engineer cloud. And so the engineer would map over, they would use all their virtual desktops and all the resources that they have in their cloud, but they would map over to Project 1000 to be able to work on that architect's project. And the architect wants that contractor to be working on Project 1000, so we set up a connection there. And then that architect is not working. This owner is not the owner for this Project 1000. There's another owner that's the owner of this Project 1000, but they don't have their own cloud. So the architect just invites them into their cloud, provides a little space, and now this owner's in there. The owner can see Project 100, probably read-only. The engineer can read-write the engineering directories. The contractor can read-write the engineering directories. Everybody's working in real time with the owner on Project 1000. All right, now it's getting more complicated. Now we'll go over to Project 2000. This engineer is leading it. Well, the engineer likes this architect. They work together a lot, so they're going to use them as the architect. So now architect over here will map over to Project 2000, which is in the engineer cloud. This engineer is going to use that contractor, so contractor can see Project 2000. And this engineer for this project is the owner down here. So you can see how this complex web this is the way it works today in the real world. We have this complex web of relationships, and everybody's shooting data all over the place. And now we can confine this complex web to a data center and make these connections so that people can work. All right, so let's go down to this Project 3000. Now this Project 3000, this contractor is going to use the architect. This connection's already made. This contractor is going to use this engineer. That connection's already made. Project 3000, this owner is the owner of that, so that's how they connect in. And you can see how it goes. You've got the idea. Now in Project 4000, where this owner is the lead on this, he's got the architect engineers, boom, all connected in through their cloud, and he's going to use this contractor to do that. So you can see how this multi-firm, multi-project cloud is possible. Everybody now has their own cloud, and they want to work together. And this is what I call running. We went from walking to jogging to running. This is where we're at now in the state of technology. Project data, like I said, is stored in the lead firm's cloud, and the stakeholders map to that drive. So Project 1000, the lead firm is the architect. They have that in their cloud that's physically stored on their servers, that big pile of storage I just showed you. And they just let the appropriate stakeholders map into it. So you can see Advance2000 manages these secure connections as projects come and go. Now, if this architect and engineer always work together, we might leave this connection in permanently. If this contractor doesn't always work with this owner, we would leave this connected for the duration of the project. Then when whoever owns or leads the project, when they tell us to break that connection, we do it. And that's pretty cool. It's amazing how this could work. People, I'll make the point here. People have always said, hey, this is kind of like a mainframe. Everybody's, accessing a remote set of services in one data center. And it's like the old, IBM mainframe. I said, yeah, kinda. I said, I would give you that it's a Windows mainframe. But what's different now is I can actually connect mainframes in the same data center, which is before I actually worked on a mainframe, and I couldn't do that because all the mainframes were in separate data centers. Now these mainframes are in the same data center, and we can connect it. Soon. All these circuits are running at 1,000 megs a gig circuits, and soon we'll be upgrading our internal switching fabric to 10 gig circuits. So you've got all this data. If it even has to move, which in most cases it won't even have to move because you're mapping to it and working. If it does have to move, it's getting moved over, soon 10 gigs, switches instead of little, 1, 2, 5 meg internet connections. So it's a huge project performance improvement. All right, now I'm going to start getting into the other scenarios here dealing with IT clouds. Got a single firm with a single IT cloud. So this is a single firm, call it in this diagram client A, The project cloud works so well, now you can add email, Nuforma, Deltek, and phones too. Boom, yes, we can do that. The IT cloud includes the project collaboration ability. So it's not either or. It's basically adding, like I said, it's adding more toys and people to your sandbox. And this is generally where all the industries that we serve fall into here. Most people see just the value of having their IT in a data center. It's kind of like an IT condo. All their phone, staff, voice, storage, and so forth. And so that's where typical firms start out, AECs as well. In this scenario, we've got a single firm connecting to multiple project clouds. While this is possible, we can certainly set it up. It's not a likely scenario. This would be basically like, okay, we've got one virtual project infrastructure in the data center that's owned by this architect, and we've got another virtual project infrastructure in the same architecture cloud. We could do that. I'm thinking, maybe for a government project, it has certain security protocols that we need to hit. We can't do sharing or whatever. So that's really what my hope is that as you look at these different scenarios, think about how your firm might use it or how your firm might change their business model. You probably will come up with things that we haven't even thought of. We'll certainly investigate all that. So single firm, multi-project cloud, probably not likely. All right, now we've got a single firm. Would it make sense to have a single firm hitting multiple IT clouds? Basically to have all their IT running in multiple data centers or multiple clouds. And I would say this is probably not possible if we're talking about a single data center, but really what this scenario is talking about is the public cloud, also known as the public cloud. And by public cloud, I mean service providers like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Autodesk that have a very narrow product, Salesforce, ADP, payroll, whatever, have a very narrow service offering or product suite, and they're just delivering it over the internet. So you as the firm, you're having to come up with a patchwork of IT managed services that you have to stitch together. You buy Microsoft 365 from Microsoft, and if you want that to interface with Amazon or Google, you got to do it. They probably don't have that set up. And so it's kind of working in opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to consolidate your IT into logically one location for a lot of the benefits I just talked about. The public cloud is actually fragmenting your IT. So even if you have one office and you buy services from 5 different cloud providers, guess what? You've got 5 data centers, and you've got your data spread over 5 data centers. So it works. I mean, it's an option, but it's a scenario that we're not focused on right now. But you can certainly, if you had ADP as your cloud provider for payroll and taxes, you can certainly get to that from your Advance2000 cloud. There's still no problem with that. All right, this other scenario is multiple firms in a single IT cloud. I thought about this and I go, well, most of our customers wouldn't do this. But I said, gosh, this is our Advance2000 business model. This is exactly what we do. We look at it as our data center as a single IT cloud, and we have multiple firms with multiple industries running their IT at some degree of services in our data center. And these are the industries I shared with you: AEC, healthcare, legal, government, education, manufacturing, distribution, and logistics is that last one. So that's the multi-firm single IT cloud is the Advance2000 business model. In this number 8 scenario, the multi-firm, multi-IT cloud. I thought about this. I thought about not even mentioning it, but I said, the thought occurred to me. This is actually I don't know if you've ever seen a stock heat map. It basically shows you a picture of the kind of the movers and shakers of the industry, and which stocks are doing well, which stocks are not doing well. And I thought of that. I said, that's exactly kind of my view of the world. All these companies have their own IT, maybe have their own data center, and this is multiple firms and multiple clouds. It's not likely scenario to have all of this sitting in one data center unless you're just sharing space and power like a colo type thing. But it just reminded me of this whole multi-firm, multi-cloud thing. Back in the 90s, venture capitalists, they were sitting on a portfolio of, say, 5 or 6, 10 startups, and all of these 10 startups had a data center in their business plan. and the VC says, we're not going to fund 10 data centers. We'll fund one data center, and all you guys we're going to squish into one data center. We're going to share those costs. It's quite possible that we'll start seeing the same thing happen with the cloud. They're going, all 10 firms, all these 10 startup firms have their own IT shop, built into their business plan. I'm not going to fund 10 IT shops. I'm going to fund one IT shop and call it a cloud, and everybody will use it. So that would be a scenario for a multi-firm, multi-IT cloud, but you're seeing this consolidation. So, like I said, not a likely scenario for Advance2000, but it is a scenario in the industry. All right, this isn't really this is a variation of all of these scenarios, but I did want to tell you what we were working on, and it's what I call a continental cloud, for lack of a better term. Well, we're not chasing international projects, all over the globe. Most of our business focus is here in the United States. We do have a lot of clients that are very large and have international operations that we want to support. And so the question they've got us working on now is like, hey, this cloud works so good in North America, can I get the same experience from the Pacific Rim? I got, project teams in India, China, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and so forth. And you can see here, and right now, the answer is kinda. You can't run it directly from this, this is our data center in Western New York. You can't run from Singapore all the way to New York a cloud desktop. The latency, and you can see here, I'll talk about this latency here. The latency is too high. The latency is just the lag going from the time you send a command from the Pacific Rim to the United States and back. And that latency is anywhere from 200 to 300 milliseconds. In order to get the cloud that I've been talking about today to function properly, we like to see the latency less than 100 milliseconds. And so that creates these I call them 100 millisecond circles or bubbles. So you can see pretty much this is what the 100 millisecond latency looks like in North America. I can pretty much get from Hawaii to the East Coast to Alaska down to parts of Central America. It's physically possible, let me say that, to get 100 milliseconds. There's a wide variety. Just because it's physically possible doesn't mean you have fiber into that location and you've got a good infrastructure to get it. So there's a lot of variation, but certainly in Canada and the United States, the latency is very good, and we can run the entire project teams out of one data center. So what if I want to do the Pacific Rim that I was talking about? We're kind of leaning towards standing up a data center in Singapore, which is kind of centrally located between Australia, China, India, and so forth. And the folks out here, this is what the 100 millisecond latency ring looks like out in the Pacific Rim. So if I have our data center out here, a cloud, either an IT cloud or a project cloud, these folks, assuming they can get the bandwidth and they can afford it, can get to that data center. So we're starting to see this consolidation of regional computing, if you will, and same thing with Europe. This is kind of about where the latency ring is in Europe. But just because the Middle East falls in this ring does not mean that you can run this to the Middle East. There's a lot of variation in countries and so forth. You could probably run it out of Europe just fine. So now here's what we're talking about. What happens if I have this project cloud in North America and I've got a 20-person team on this project, 10 of them are in North America, 10 of them are in Singapore. What we would do is we would set up a replication. We would create another cloud here in Singapore. We'd already have the cloud in North America, and we would replicate that project data. Now, you got to do all kinds of coordination between your Revit Central files and all that. I'm aware of that. But at least right now in the United States, firms are doing this. They're replicating between offices in the United States. Now, if I got to just replicate at once between 2 data centers around the globe, that's, we're making progress here. So until somebody figures out how to move bits faster than the speed of light, or we come up with a new technology that allow us to operate and design buildings over 300 millisecond latency, because that's about what it takes to get from North America all the way to the Pacific Rim. This is kind of what we're seeing as kind of the interim. If we can easily cover the globe with three data centers with replicating data. So that's how we would support clients in those other offices. All right. quickly get through some of our Collaboration Hub partners. So that's the collaboration methods I was talking about. Now there's a whole host of partners that see the value of this Collaboration Hub and now what you can do in the cloud. I mean, who cares? There's a lot of blinking lights. It's computers. Now I want to talk about business. I want to talk about getting this project done on schedule, on budget, and so forth. And kind of another image that stuck in my head, these cloud-based solutions, these partners, they're starting to combine with us kind of like a mercury puddle. Of course, this is all ecologically friendly and it's all secure and all that. But, you know, when puddles of mercury get close to each other, they kind of either connect or get absorbed by it. And that's kind of what's going on with these cloud providers. And it's kind of like, much like you see business growth along a new road or a light rail system, the same thing's happening. We've got this cloud ecosystem forming, and there's business partners kind of sprouting up to serve the people that are in that collaboration hub. The list of partners is growing, and there's going to be more announcements in the future. There's a couple of confidential things that I'm working on. As soon as it's public, I will let you know, probably at AU this December. The first, we've got AEC Cloud Agents. These are people that have had their own business supporting the AEC industry for a variety of things, whether it's Revit training, CAD support, software configuration. We've got Randall Schultz, the owner of CAD Force in Dallas. We've got Daryl Smith, the owner of the Mendicant Architect in Austin, Texas. And we've got Paul Benbow, the owner of Next Wave Technology in Raleigh. They're basically authorized resellers of Advance2000 Cloud. So they've been good partners with us. We've got AEC Catalyst. You know, it's great that you have a project cloud that you can collaborate for, but these buildings don't draw themselves. You still have to have good people that know what they're doing to design buildings. And if you need more support, then you've got people that can you know, jump in and work on this and be additional labor on your model. We've got TPM. TPM is a traditional Autodesk reseller, provider of software and training implementation. They've also got a plotter, OSE Plotter FM service that's also in the cloud, and they're here in Charlotte. They support the Revit user group and so forth. We've got CAD Training Online. They're a cloud-based training, one of the first authorized Autodesk training centers to be able to do this, training all across the country. Green Wizard is this is a new service provider that's popping up, and we've got some cloud-based technology for buildings material management. So when you're designing sustainable projects, trying to go LEED Platinum, these guys have a cloud-based solution that would tie into ours. Sampling of our cloud customers, you know, Canon, Little, HDR, and so forth. I won't elaborate them all, but this is the collaboration hub that's expanding. And so in this single data, just in summary, we're wrapping up here. I'm going to take some questions. But here's the 8 scenarios. You've got a single firm, single project cloud, which is where firms start. This is where our pilots, you start here. You move into a multi-firm collaboration cloud, and allows you to grow your firm and grow your projects. And number 3, we're getting into a multi-firm, multi-project cloud, and this is kind of what I call going viral now. In the scenario I talked about, you've got an architect invites an engineer to their cloud to work on a project. They said, hey, this works great. I want my own cloud. And so they call us up and start, you know, fanning out that way. You've got a single firm, single IT cloud, which is basically, you know, your IT running in a cloud. A single firm, multi-project cloud. Like I said, possible but not a likely scenario. A single firm multi-IT cloud, which is the public clouds. You've got the multiple firm IT cloud, which is the Advance2000 business model. And then the last one is the multi-firm IT cloud. And of course, the Continental Cloud will tie this all in depending on what your needs are. And so that's where you can kind of let this sink in and see how your firm might use any one of those scenarios. Couple parting thoughts that I want to leave you with, things that make you go, Well, you want to definitely ponder this new capability and see how it might help you create new business models or sources of revenue. You can do more things. You don't have to. You're not constrained by the amount of data you can store. You might be able to add point clouds and laser scanning and all kinds of things like that. I've had several. This is more for firm owners. I've had several firms come to me within a couple stories. Healthcare provider, hospital CIOs are saying, look, a lot of these doctors' offices can't afford the IT infrastructure to get compliant with either regulations or electronic medical records. So they're basically selling their practices to the hospital so that they can stay in business and work on the hospital's infrastructure. Same thing in the financial services world. I had a guy tell me, an owner, tell me 10 years ago he sold his firm because he couldn't keep up with the IT spend to be competitive. And the same thing is happening in the AEC space. With a cloud, you're going to be able to maintain control of your company and possibly avoid a forced sale. You can compete with the big boys at the same price points they're paying and still, have control of your firm. And the last point here is, the AEC, fragmentation. We've got a lot of data between a lot of companies. We just think that's a given. The world is changing. You could see all these mergers and acquisitions happening, and in the cloud, it's making those things even easier. If something were to happen, it gives firms more options. Either you can stay autonomous, or you can collaborate, or physically join your firms instead of just virtually joining your firms. How do you begin? What we say, our mantra is you try the cloud, you use the cloud, and you embrace the cloud. The try the cloud, what that means is we have free demo accounts, a virtual cloud desktop. We give you a two-core 16-gig desktop. Call us up. We'll let you play around with it for a week or so to get the feel for how that works from various internet connections from various locations. You throw up your model, spin it around, and do all kinds of stuff. And you can use the cloud, say, all right, I like the demo. Let's actually set up a pilot project. I told you, I gave you a couple pricing scenarios for a 5- and 10-person project. It's only a 2-month commitment. You try it out. You see if it'll work for your firm. And then the last is it works for your firm. I'm going to embrace the cloud. I'm going to figure out what business goals I'm trying to solve, which scenario is a likely scenario for me to adopt, and then you run with it. And there's actually I set up a private LinkedIn group on the AEC Collaboration Hub. So all the members that are in our cloud, any member in their firm that wants to join, we let them join this group, and that's how you can make connections from a people side. Hey, I need this project. Anybody in the cloud can do this type of skill, blah, blah, blah. This is where all the connections are starting to happen. And so that's pretty much it. My last slide. I'm ready to take some questions, and this is kind of the future. Multiple clouds in our cloud, all doing these connections and working. And we're going to have this actually live up at AU 2012 this year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Will. Will, what kind of questions are we getting?
Well, the first one is, where is the earlier presentation located?
It's on the Advance2000 website. If you go to the industries, it says Architects, Engineering, Construction Industry. If you go to that tab, down at the bottom, it'll say BIM Cloud. And I think we're going to change the, as we're adding more of these webinars, we'll have the BIM Cloud Part 1, AEC Collaboration Hub Part 2, and so forth.
All right, the next one is, how does Autodesk licensing work with a BIM Cloud Revit solution?
Autodesk licensing, right now they still require you to BYOL, bring your own license. You still have to buy your license, and it has to be a network seat. But once you have your own network license, we basically, they don't care where you're running your hardware, whether it's in your office, on the East Coast, in the West Coast, or in the cloud. The whole Revit license manager keeps track of your usage.
And you might want to repeat the question. How are software subscriptions managed? I guess that would be like Microsoft, or what other subscriptions can we handle?
Well, there's all the Microsoft. There's a different. Let me just say with the software vendor, it varies. Microsoft is different than Autodesk, is different than Bentley, is different than Graphisoft, and so forth. So we got to look at that vendor's licensing restrictions or requirements. We haven't had any problems. If it'll run on your computers, it'll run on our computers. Certain things we have to do to make sense, like Autodesk won't let you run a standalone seat. You'll have to have a network seat. And the subscriptions and the maintenance would be the same. You basically own the license. You pay the maintenance for as long as you want to keep it. Now, there's different options. In the Microsoft hasn't adopted the cloud model. They'll say, we'll let you buy our software, or we'll let you rent our software. You decide. And Advance2000 can rent you Microsoft software on a monthly basis, whether it's Office or SharePoint or Exchange or whatever. So you have that option with Microsoft. You don't have that option with Autodesk. I can't buy Revit and rent it to you. You've got to bring your own license.
So that answers the question: what applications will run on a virtual desktop? You want to just emphasize that?
Yeah. Virtual. What app? I think they can hear you. Get the speaker open. The virtual. What applications run on a virtual desktop? It kind of reminds me for those of you in IT that 10 years ago, when VMware first came out, virtualization for the server, there were certain server applications that would run under a virtual server and some that would not. The same is true with desktop virtualization. I would say we could probably run 90% of desktop applications in the AEC industry on a virtual desktop. 10% of them still will not run in a virtual desktop, but that doesn't mean we can't run them in the cloud. It just means that we run them on a physical desktop instead of a virtual desktop. But I will say at the end of the year, it's supposed to be released VMware 6. NVIDIA and VMware have signed a partnership where basically they're virtualizing the GPU. So the applications that that fell in that 10% of things that couldn't be virtualized, they may very well be able to be virtualized when this new version comes out. So we may be able to run 99% of applications in a virtual environment. It's just getting better and better, just like the server infrastructure did.
Okay, what kind of data connections are needed to access cloud from an office location?
Yes.
That's
very, very common question. I would say at the very least you'll need at least a 5 meg connection, and that's a business class broadband connection. We've seen 50 download speeds by 5 meg upload speeds. But what we generally say is we like to see at least 1 meg per user. So a 5 meg circuit, may and all depends on the applications and the size projects. We like to see 1 meg per user. Now, obviously, the larger you get. Now, some firms, they're looking at 100 meg, 200 meg circuits for their offices, and you might have, 400 people working on a 200 meg circuit. You can kind of oversubscribe a little bit because most of the time, all 400 people are not on the cloud at the same time because they're mobile or whatever. So there's really, it depends, but that's a good rule of thumb is 5 meg minimum, 1 meg per user going up. And I'll also say, connecting to the cloud, you also have 2 options. You can connect over the internet, which is generally how people do it when they're traveling because that's the only connection you have. But more than likely, we recommend our firms that are all in our cloud to have a private circuit from their offices to our data center so that they are the only ones on that circuit, and we can control the performance and the bandwidth and all that. So generally, firms that are kind of all in and migrated, they'll have private circuits in their offices, but when they go mobile or at home, they'll be on the internet.
So James wants to know what happens when internet access quality or speed is reduced down to less than 1 meg.
Your cloud experience will be reduced, and that's part of the demo process. You'll see what it'll do is it'll lag, it'll chug, and you'll say, oh, this stinks, and you'll see what the internet or the circuit, how it affects your cloud experience. And so, and we are doing different. We're not just surfing. We're actually doing real-time computing over that circuit. So, but it is possible. Once you get that circuit, a lot of the small firms may have to upgrade their circuit and get a little bit beefier circuit. But if they're under that, you might be able to work on a DSL line or an airport hotspot just to get in and look around, but you wouldn't want to work on it for 8 hours. You just got to make sure that the circuits are properly sized.
All right, so Jason wants to know, are you able to take advantage of graphics hardware acceleration in Revit? That's a setting in Revit.
Yeah, this might be a little more technical than over my. I believe right now we run Revit on a virtual desktop with the graphics acceleration turned off, and it works fine. When we get this new version of VMware, we may turn it back on. We'll just have to test it.
How is Autodesk for supporting a platform that is not an officially supported configuration? This is the EULA and...
It's the whole Citrix thing, yeah. You're right. It is legal to run on VMware. It's just that Autodesk says, hey, we can't test every single virtual platform out there, and we've only decided to test on Citrix, so that's really all we'll support. You know, like I said, this is the same thing that happened with server virtualization. Microsoft told me the same thing about Exchange. Hey, you can't virtualize Exchange. We're not going to support it. And I said, oh, like heck you're not. I said, if we have a problem with Exchange and you won't support me on VMware, I'll move it back to a physical server, call you, and then move it back. So that's kind of, you know, they'll say, yeah, we'll support it, but they don't. Their official thing is they won't support it. But right now, I mean, I tell people if you've got Citrix in your infrastructure and you know it, and you already have the licenses, then use Citrix. Citrix has gotten much better. 2 years ago, Citrix wasn't even close to VMware to be able to do the performance that we needed for this kind of computing. Well, but either one of them will work.
Let's go over to Bruce, and he's saying, what if the clouds are hosted in the same data center or platform? Citrix, VMware, Hyper-V. I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think we've had the conversation with Bruce before. What if the clouds are hosted in the same data center or platform? Does that mean using VMware and Citrix on 2 different clouds and linking them?
Yeah, that's certainly possible. We run all of the virtual technology in our cloud for different industries, for different problems. You know, Hyper-V, Microsoft's late to the game. It's slow. It doesn't work well with latency. It's getting better. RDP, Citrix has gotten much better. So, but technically, you're right. If you've got desktops in the same data center running Citrix, and that one, you know, and Architect Cloud, and you've got the Engineer Cloud with VMware, then all you're doing is using your desktop and your virtual infrastructure to map to a drive. That certainly will work.
Okay. We can keep on the Revit topic here.
We're good about 4 minutes.
All right. Where does our license server for Revit live? Do we copy to the cloud?
It varies. If you're on a project cloud, generally we'll leave the license server at your office. If you're in our cloud and you want us to host your, this is another little licensing nuance of Autodesk, you actually can't run on a shared server if you license servers in our data center. It has to actually be a co-location that's dedicated just to you. It's crazy, but that's just the way Autodesk is, you know, it's basically the lawyers are trying to catch up with the technology, and they're just not there yet. They're hoping to do a new cloud EULA next year, which should hopefully clear up a lot of this stuff. But there's ways to get around it, you know, legally and technically.
All right, let's keep this going. So you've got multi-firm, single project. How does Advance2000 deal with software licensing with this situation? Does the prime cloud owner share their licenses with the sub-consultants, and if so, is this legal with current licensing agreements?
Yeah, it all depends, and I will say we don't do anything that's illegal. We're an IT provider that we get audited all the time. And generally what we've done, and there's different, everybody's got somewhat of a different licensing scenario with Autodesk. Sometimes if you're a subcontractor, you can use the main firm's licenses, and if it's only if that's all you're using. But most of the time, you know, if you've got 5 firms collaborating, like I said, it's BYOL. Bring your own license to the cloud. So if I've got 20 desktops, and with 4 firms, each firm has 5 desktops, I'll point 5 of these desktops to your license server. Firm A, I'll point these other 5 to Firm B's license server, and so on. So basically, everybody brings their own license. And this is part of what, you know, Autodesk is kind of freaking out on this too. But that's, and we're working with their attorneys and all that to make sure everything's above board and they understand what we're doing. Let's just say we are following the letter and the spirit of the law.
So please discuss the transition of a project started by an architect as it moves to being owned by a contractor and then by the building owner. Yeah.
Well, as far as being owned, you know, moving the project around, if we have to move, like I said, you know, most of the time if you're content with leaving this, you know, that project 1000 that I talked about in the architect's cloud, everybody accesses it just fine throughout the whole life cycle. We're not moving any data. If you need to physically move it from the architect to the contractor to the owner, we can certainly do that. They all have their own clouds, and we would just copy that project folder to the respective cloud. But here again, it's over that gig or 10 gig switch infrastructure. It won't take very long at all. But certainly doable.
What about third-party add-ins? Revit, BIM link, can we install them on virtual desktops?
Yes, anything that runs on your computers, it'll run on our computers.
Bruce clarified his cloud question. If the VMware and Citrix were in different data centers.
Then that's no different than we are today. You've got to look at where your data is located. If I have my data in 2 data centers, kind of like what I was talking about with the Continental Cloud, I've still got to transfer data. I want to centralize when I can and distribute when I have to. And I'm saying the only reason to distribute is when you're going continental. You don't want to have to distribute when you're in the United States, because there's ways to solve that without having to distribute. It's a business decision that you make.
Yeah, we've got more questions on software and.
Well, I want to be cognizant of people's time. It's 3 o'clock. We'll answer a few more, and then we'll wrap. And if anybody's got further questions, we can certainly give us a call, and we'll follow up and have one-on-one. Because everybody's got, and I'm trying to keep this general and communicate the intent. And it looks like you guys got it. Now we want to talk specifically about your firms and how you want to work.
Yeah. What is the largest client size, number of people?
Canon Design, probably 1,200 people. They are a single firm, all IT in our cloud.
Number of locations?
I think Canon's got, I don't know, 15 to 20 offices.
They have private circuits?
Yes.
Okay, so what redundancy is built into our data center?
Oh, we can go on and on. We've got a lot. You know, are we the Pentagon data centers? No. We're trying to make our data centers affordable for the small and medium-sized businesses to be able to get into it. Most of our clients have never been able to get into a data center. It's just too expensive. But we've got, you know, multiple fiber feeds. We've got three generators, of which only 2 of them are needed to run the data center. We've got a backup data center, which is about 20 miles away, and we're looking at building a 3rd data center starting this year. And so we've got, you know, multiple VMware hosts, and I don't want to say we have perfect redundancy, but we've got quite a bit, generally more than our clients have before they move to the cloud.
Somebody wants to know what cloud technology platforms we're using: Azure, Google, Amazon. We're not. It's a private data center. This is our cloud.
It's right. This is our cloud. We own the data center. We own the land. We own all the equipment. It's our cloud.
How do we deal with projects that vary in length? 6 months? Do we require a 1-year contract?
There's different ways to do this, and it all depends on your firm and your goals. Some firms have said, look, I'm gonna sign up on a 3-year project cloud, because even though this project's only going to last a year, I know I'm going to have more projects coming in, and right after it, I'll just repurpose those desktops and do different projects on that. There's certainly, if you only want to sign a 1-year contract for this project, you can do that. Another advantage you have of being in the cloud to be able to ramp up and ramp down. Say you sign a 3-year contract and decide, oh, this project, it got completed and we don't have anything else, and it's, we're just short of the 2-year mark. We'll basically let you exit out, but you'll have to pay to the end of that 2nd year, and then the delta of what you would have had to pay had you signed a 2-year contract. So you've got some flexibility there.
How do we get the projects into the cloud?
A variety of ways. We basically will connect a VPN between a site-to-site VPN between our office, our data center, and your office. Our 2nd data center, we're actually trying to make that.
Voice is gone. Take the phone.
Well, they might have. I don't think the VMware or the go-to meeting might have cut off the recording. All right, having some go-to meeting traffic. All right, we're back. The question was, how green is our data center? The new data center we're building is going to be greener than Yahoo's data center in Western New York. And the one that we have now, Western New York is a very good place to have a data center. It's cold. We use a lot of outside air and not have to use a lot of electricity. And plus, even the electricity we do use is generated by hydropower from Niagara Falls. So we try to be as green as possible to run all this technology.
Okay.
One more question, Will, and then we'll wrap.
No, we're out of questions.
We're good.
I had one that I wrote down.
All right.
How do you handle file system rights?
How do we handle file system rights? Right now, it's simple Windows ACLs, Active Directory. If I have an architecture directory, we know who the named users are, and we say, all right, these users are allowed to read-write these directories. Those users can only read-only, just like you would manage it now in your firm.
And one of your slides, you showed latency circles with 100 milliseconds, and we like it less than 100. How do you measure the latency from someone's office to our data center?
Oh, good question. How do we measure the latency from our office to the data center? We can actually, there's a little test tool that we have for a data center. In fact, I should probably put this on the slide next time. It's www.av2, that's AV for advanced, and then 2, the number 2.com/nettest, N-E-T-T-E-S-T. And if you run that, you'll get your bandwidth. You can run it from different locations, home, office, whatever. And that actually, it's different than speed test, because speed test will only test to your closest router. And this net test will go all the way to our data center. And so if you run that and you see you're within the tolerances of 100 milliseconds, and you want to run a cloud, give us a call.
I think we can wrap it up with this last question. Is this being recorded, and where can it be found afterwards?
Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and everybody that signed up for the webinar, I'll post it to the GoToMeeting, the GoToWebinar site, so you'll get an automatic email message to be able to say, all right, here's the recorded webinar. You can watch it again. You can invite other firm principals, whatever, to watch it, and we're also going to post it on our website right below that BIM Cloud that is on our website under the AEC tab. I want to thank you all for attending our webinar today, and we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you. Have a good day.